Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I am Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Hey, for those of you who've been hanging out here on the channel for a while now, you know we are in the middle of a series of videos related to how to restore your gun rights. And this is all because we have launched our new website, getmyrightsback.com. Well, we've gone through a few scenarios, and now we're going to get to another really common scenario. So let's spend a few minutes today talking about restoring your gun rights in Washington State, Part 4, Class C Felonies. Okay, before we get too far down the road, you guys know the drill. If you like this video, go ahead and click that like button. If you want to stay up to date on issues related to this kind of stuff, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Click the little bell logo if you want to be notified when we post new videos. And most importantly, let's keep the comments and discussions coming. That's how we're going to make sure we're getting our videos out to more lawful and responsible gun owners like yourself. Okay, so this is video 4 in a series of what's shaping up to be probably about 5, 6, maybe 7 videos. To recap what we've been over with already, we started with our first video, which was kind of about the journey. And we talked to a loyal follower of Washington Gun Law named Brian. Brian, a number of years ago, had to go through the restoration process himself, and he gave us a very candid account of what he had been to. Part 2 of our video series, of course, was all the bad news, all the people who have been disqualified from firearms and who will never, ever have an opportunity to restore that. Our most recent video on this subject dealt with Class B felonies, and we talked about the great levels of complications that we have. Class B felonies turn out to be really one of the more complicated things we deal with due to some nuances in the laws. Today we're going to be talking about Class C felonies. Now that is anything that's punishable by up to 5 years in prison and or a $10,000 fine. And what we're going to find is that while the law gave us some rub and some complications when it comes to Class B, that same law actually streamlines things a little bit for Class C felonies. Okay, just to get you again up to speed, the law that we're dealing with today is RCW 9.41.040, a law which looks a lot like this. And as usual, the legislature has drafted a huge pile of word salad, and we're going to go ahead and break this statute down, focus primarily on that section right there, Section 4, and we're going to break down for what you need to do to restore your Second Amendment rights if, God forbid, you have previously been convicted of a Class C felony. Now, we know that the rule of law found in 941.040 subsection 4 is that if you've been convicted of a felony, you must wait at least 5 years before you can begin restoration. And if you've been convicted of a misdemeanor, you must wait at least 3 years. But we also know from 941.040 little 2 big A that your felony offender score has to have wash. That means that felony can no longer count against your offender score. And if you recall our last video, we went through the SRA and some of the offender scores and how that works. Now, the problem with Class B felonies is when we take a look at this statute, when we take a look at the statute that's referenced, 9.94A.525, we see that we have to wait at least 10 years before a Class B felony will wash, which means that even though 941.040 subsection 4 says that we have to wait no longer than 5 years, for Class B felonies, it actually doubles up to 10 years because you have to wait at least that long for that particular felony to wash from your offender score. That same problem does not exist, however, for Class C felonies. You see, because under the same statute, but a different subsection, subsection C, those who are convicted of Class C felonies only have to wait 5 years. The statute specifically states Class C prior felony convictions other than sex offenses should not be included in the offender score if, since the time of the last release from confinement, including full residential treatment pursuant to a felony conviction, if any, or entry of judgment and sentence, the offender has spent 5 consecutive years in the community without committing any crime that subsequently results in a conviction. Okay, so just to recap, under 941.040, if we have been convicted of a felony, we have to wait a minimum of 5 years. However, under 9.94A.525, Class B felonies will not wash off our offender score for a minimum of 10 years, which means if we are convicted of a Class B felony, we have to wait at least 10 years before we restore. But under 9.94A.525 subsection C, Class C felonies wash off at 5 years. So the 5-year time limit found in 941.040 subsection 4 actually applies equally to Class C felony. So if you have been convicted of a Class C felony, you can begin the restoration process as soon as 5 years following the conviction date, so long as you have lived a crime-free lifestyle during that time. Now, the one similar thing, though, that C's and B felonies have in common is this, is that on the federal level, there still is no restoration process for felonies. Whether it's a B felony or a C felony, there is no restoration process. So once again, going back to what we talked with Class B felonies, we have to change what actually happened on that case based upon the definition found in 18 U.S.C. section 921. That statute, once again, specifically states, any conviction which has been expunged or set aside, or for which a person has been pardoned or has had a civil rights restored, shall not be considered a conviction for purposes of this chapter, unless such pardon, expungement, or restoration of civil rights expressly provides that the person may not ship, transport, possess, or receive firearm. So if we can go back and change that conviction so it is no longer a conviction under the United States Code, then we can restore on the federal level. And again, as we've talked about, getting your rights restored on the state level and not getting them restored on the federal level is not really firearm rights restoration, because although you may qualify for a concealed pistol license issued to you by local government, when you go to the FFL to buy your first handgun or your first firearm, you're not going to pass the background check, and that sale is going to be rejected. So what do we need to do in order to make sure that you can reinstate on the federal level? Well, we need to do one of three things. We either need to get you pardoned by the governor, fat chance, or we can do one of the more two realistic alternatives. The first is what's called a certificate of discharge. It shows that all aspects of the sentence have been complied, including all financial obligations, including any restitution that was owed. The other way to do it, of course, is to move to vacate the conviction. You must have gone at least 5 years with no other criminal behavior, and some Class C felonies simply cannot be vacated. I'll put a list of those down below in the description box. We won't bore you with all the details here on that. So, in a quick recap, for Class C felonies, yes, you can restore. You can do so as soon as 5 years following the date of your conviction. And yes, you can restore on the federal level so long as you can get a certificate of discharge or an order on vacation, vacating that conviction. If all of that happens, yes, you, once again, can become the lawful and responsible gun owner. Listen, you may have more questions about restoring your gun rights, and if you do, please visit us at getmyrightsback.com. If you have any other questions related to your Second Amendment rights, don't ever hesitate to contact us at WashingtonGunLaw.com, or of course you can call us directly at 425-765-0487. Now let's remember, part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here at Washington Gun Law, is to know what the law is in every situation and how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching, and stay safe.